Welcome, everyone, to the Strategies for Success webinar series 2024. It's a pleasure to have you with me today. My name is Norma Hollebeck, and I'm the Senior Manager of Network Programs and Services with Every Learner Everywhere. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to take just a few minutes out to tell you about Every Learner Everywhere, the mission of our network. Every Learner Everywhere is a collaboration of higher education organizations with the expertise in evaluating, implementing, scaling, and measuring the efficacy of digital learning and its integration into pedagogical practice. Every Learner Everywhere is sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and here at Every Learner, we work with colleges and universities to build capacity among faculty and instructional support staff to improve student outcomes with digital learning. Our mission is to help institutions use new technology with the ultimate goal of innovating teaching and learning to increase student success, especially for first-generation college students, poverty-impacted students, and racially minoritized students.
Man at computer.
A quick housekeeping note before the presentation. We welcome your questions in the Q&A section. If participants raise their hand, however, we will not be able to unmute you. We will be monitoring the Q&A section as well as the chat.
Slide text about us.
And now to our esteemed guest. Marc Watkins is an academic innovation fellow, lecturer of writing and rhetoric, and serves as the director of the AI Summer Institute for Teachers of Writing at the University of Mississippi. He co-chairs the AI working group with his department and serves as the liaison with other departments on campus exploring generative AI impact on teaching and learning. In addition to being awarded a Pushcart Prize, Marc has been awarded a 2018 Blackboard Catalyst Award for Teaching and Learning, a WOW Fellowship, and a Sarah Issam Fellowship. His research includes OER, open educational pedagogy, creative writing, digital humanities, AI in education, and grant writing. Please help me welcome our guest speaker, Marc Watkins.
Speaker name, Patty.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful welcome too. Much of that was just invented this past year in terms of titles and things because of generative AI. And what we're going to kind of talk about today is how to build AI literacy with students and really rethinking how we do professional development in higher education to not necessarily match the pace of generative AI, because that is, of course, almost out of control, but to really develop resiliency and sustainability within our own faculty and our own educational practices so that with every new update, we don't become so overwhelmed with the actual issue at hand, which in this case is how AI is impacting teaching and learning. So I'm going to share my slides.
The man sits in office.
Okay, it's asking me for my Zoom password. A little bit interesting here. Didn't know that would be the case.
Title slide, Building AI Literacy with Students.
Okay, hopefully this works. Okay, let me do it in presentation mode. So generative AI is obviously changing rapidly. I wanted to give you all an example just to start off with of just showing what's actually there. And I was putting the final touches on my slideshow yesterday, and we had two major announcements from Google and OpenAI.
Title, Some Recent Developments.
So OpenAI released a new model just yesterday called Sora, which is a text-to-video transformer model that builds off their research with GPT and DALL-E 3.
Video caption, the prompt.
The prompt that I use this from their example because it's not publicly available, but the demos are in the actual link that I believe Patty shared to the chat, is a 3D animation of a small, round, fluffy creature with big, expressive eyes, explores a vibrant, enchanted forest. There's no sound because it's just text to video, but this was just released yesterday. So we've now gone from text generation with ChatGPT,
Animated creature on a mushroom,
from image generation. Some of you have seen some other versions of this with music software as well. We now have video generation that is going to be available to people too. So lots of implications to think about. Well, that wasn't the only one, not to be outdone.
Title, Not to.
So a week earlier, Google had announced that they were rebranding Bard as Gemini and launching it with their GPT-4 level model called Ultra 1.0.
Text, Gemini.
Well, yesterday, they made the announcement that they were releasing Ultra 1.5. So that's two back-to-back announcements from Google in under a week.
Graphic displayed.
Ultra 1.5 can read up to 1 million tokens in its context window, and there are people speculating that this model is actually going to be better than GPT-4. Show you a very brief demo from their actual launch of this. In this case, they're using an out-of-copyright Buster Keaton comedic black and white silent film, and they're going to ask the actual language model to find some specific items within the video.
Displays the token count.
This is a demo of long context understanding, an experimental feature in our newest model, Gemini 1.5 Pro. We'll walk through a screen recording of example prompts using a 44-minute Buster Keaton film, which comes out to over 600,000 tokens. In Google AI Studio, we uploaded the video and asked, "Find the moment when a piece of paper is removed from the person's pocket and tell me some key information on it with the timecode." This screen capture is sped up, and this timer shows exactly how long it took to process each prompt. And keep in mind that processing times will vary. The model gave us this response, explaining that the piece of paper is a pawn ticket from Goldman & Company pawnbrokers with the date and cost, and it gave us this timecode 1201. When we pulled up that timecode, we found it was correct. The model had found the exact moment the piece of paper is removed from the person's pocket, and it extracted text accurately. Next, we gave it this drawing of a scene we were thinking of and asked, "What is the timecode when this happens?" This is an example of a multimodal prompt where we combine text and image in our input. The model returned this timecode, 1534. We pulled that up and found that it was the correct scene. Like all generative models, responses vary and won't always be perfect. But notice how we didn't have to explain what was happening in the drawing. Simple drawings like this are a good way to test if the model can find something based on just a few abstract details, like it did here. These are just a couple examples of what's possible with a context window of up to 1 million multimodal tokens in Gemini 1.5 Pro.
I'll stop the video there. Hopefully you all can hear that. If not, it is included in the resource sheet too that will be available in the chat and on the website. The big takeaway from this is what I've just done right now has served as the town crier, telling you that these changes are here. And we've all had different faculty and different professional development situations the past year and a half since ChatGPT was released, where someone was doing that. They would announce something, or you would do a lunch and learn, or you do some type of activity that would let you know what was going on. What we found is that that's not necessarily the most effective means of training faculty and building their AI literacy so they can then go meet this example for their students and build their students' literacy as well too. So we tried something a little bit different here at the University of Mississippi. And we started and established the Mississippi AI Institute. Back in May of 2023, we basically partnered, my department, the Department of Writing and Rhetoric, partnered with the Institute for Data Science and began funding an in-person training institute designed to help faculty focus and explore generative AI and how that is applied AI in the context of what they teach and what their students are learning. So it's designed to train faculty in critical AI literacy, which I'll define here in a minute, to help them navigate the changing nature of what it means to teach and students to learn in our new digital age. The Summer AI Institute was June of 2023, and we were able to train 23 faculty members in 1.5 days.
PowerPoint title.
Most recently, we've gone from the Summer Institute to the recent Winter Institute in January, where we partnered with our Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning and our Academic Innovation Group. And we were able to extend that from 1.5 days to 3 full days of training, where we were able to train almost 60 faculty members in a lot of different AI topics.
Text AI Institute structure.
So we had over 26 different people from different departments and schools in the 3-day event. We talked about AI literacy basics during one day. We talked about applying different types of AI assistance. And then we looked at advanced AI frontiers. The 2 example videos you just saw at the beginning of this are versions of AI frontiers, where the things are actually going and changing. So the whole idea with this is it's in-person training with a Zoom follow-up. We believe that getting people together in the same room over extended periods of time from different disciplines and different points of view about generative AI is very important. We wanted people who were skeptics, that were not really wanting to adopt generative AI, who wanted to try to protect their traditional teaching methods. We wanted them sitting across from people who are AI advocates, so they can have an actual debate, a discourse about what this was doing with their field.
Slide text in person.
We were able to provide stipends for people to attend in the summer version of it. We were able to pay 23 members $1,000 apiece for attending. We changed that a little bit in January, since we went from 23 to over 60 faculty members. And we were able to secure stipends with the help of Stephen Monroe, the chair of the Department of Writing and Rhetoric, to fund writing faculty to produce a deliverable related to AI in teaching. Now, these are projects where it could be something like a course policy, an activity, assignment, or a publication where the teacher begins to explore how AI is impacting what they're doing with their writing students. We have quite a few of them in the process right now, and we will eventually, hopefully by the end of May, have a open access resource hub available showing you about all the different faculty members and what they've created from these different deliverables based off of what they're doing with their classes. The whole point is that it's immersive, up-to-date, and hands-on with AI tools. We try to keep it as up-to-date as possible to underscore how much of a struggle this is. From the June AI Institute to the January one, I was only able to reuse about 20% of the curriculum that I made for the June Institute for the January one. I had to recreate and redesign much of the activities and assignments for that, which is obviously a challenge. But it is now an open source curriculum, and you may use it. Obviously, understanding that there is that caveat that it does not have the greatest shelf life in the world, but it is a great starting point to see what is most recently available for faculty and students, and to start seeing how
Slide text stipends for writing.
Different fields and disciplines are incorporating AI and AI literacy into their everyday teaching.
Text, know and understand AI.
So AI literacy, broadly defined, is an offshoot and a build out of existing media literacy. It's not anything necessarily new. We needed to know media literacy when we started going to computers and having the internet. Now AI is just another tool that fits underneath that broad category umbrella of media literacy.
Builds upon media literacy. Graphics split into quadrants.
To understand AI literacy, you need to understand having the skills and competencies required to use AI technologies and applications effectively. We also hope that students develop their critical AI literacy that explores challenges with accuracy, bias, ethics, and all the different things from training data, hallucinations.
Text builds upon existing media literacy.
I can go ahead and say that that is one of the biggest challenges that we have, is just making a list of all the different things we'd like to train our faculty and our students for critical literacy.
Text, AI, and education.
So AI and education, and this is the former Meta VP, Jerome Pezzinti, talking about why AI literacy matters. Students are obviously adopting these systems at an unprecedented pace. If we just even talk to our faculty in our home departments right now, we could probably mention dozens, if not more, stories of students coming across different types of AI tools, sometimes trying to use that openly, oftentimes not using that openly and not ethically. But when we try to build AI literacy with our students, what we're really trying to do is what he's actually citing here too, is helping billions of users, in case all of our students in the world remember AI's limitations while using it every day, is going to have to be a top priority for education. It's also going to be in most business fields as well too. So what I'm going to show you is probably going to be upsetting, but it's important you understand how students are running across a lot of these different types of AI tools in the world, and that's through social media. And what I'm going to do is show you these tools in quick succession and show you brief clips here from TikTok, from Instagram and Snapchat, just so you can see how these students are basically being inundated with these different technologies. And what I'm going to do is try to show how you can reframe this, if you can talk about this from a literacy standpoint, and why building that AI literacy matters a great deal.
The influencers selling AI.
So we're going to talk about the influencers selling AI. So we have dozens of third-party apps, and they're selling students on generative AI. They are not from Microsoft. They are not from OpenAI's ChatGPT. They're using the OpenAI's API access and other open models to build various forms of generative AI. Most pitches from influencers on social media that students see are geared towards saving time and offloading work. Many students don't understand what AI means outside of ChatGPT, which becomes a major problem both for our students and for our faculty, which is why AI literacy matters so much. And students increasingly come across these apps all across social media. So this is Olivia Dunn. She is an influencer. She also happens to be a student at Louisiana State University. She is the highest paid NCAA female athlete in the country right now. Her name, image, likeness deals gave her millions of dollars of endorsements from different apps. And I do think I don't know if there's audio with this clip or not too, but this is her selling Cactus AI as an influencer.
What you looking for? We got what you looking for. What you looking for? We got what you looking for. What you looking for? We got what you looking for.
So again, if you're a student or anyone scrolling very quickly through your actual social media, you come across these very short little clips that try to sell you something. And I think Olivia Dunn is a good example of this because she really does fit the mold of influencer that a lot of these companies are trying to find. That's usually someone young, about the age of a college student, attractive, generally speaking, female, and also white, which is all the sort of key factors they're looking at. Well, again, so if you can actually intervene and talk about this, there are different tools that could be actually helpful, but we want to get past that pitch that students are finding out these to actually understand. Not only can AI generate text, it can also augment reading and research. There's an app that's very popular that's going around on social media called Unriddle AI. It uses retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, to summarize documents. It can be really helpful for a researcher or for a student to explore vast amounts of information. It can also assist with students that have reading difficulties. It can help them form new connections and synthesize information. Unfortunately, though, it's marketed as a tool to offload close reading when you see it run across it on social media. So this is a TikTok influencer. Her name is her call sign is My Legal Era, and she is a former Yale undergrad student who's now a L1 law student at Berkeley, and here she is advertising Unriddle AI.
I know we hate spending hours to do research for a paper worth literally 10% of your grade, so I have a hack for you. Using Unriddle, you can upload as many documents as you want, and the AI will summarize for you. You can also ask it questions that it'll answer based on your text. It can also simplify really complicated topics, and you can start writing your assignment directly next to your research. If you ever get stuck, you can use the ++ function to generate the next sentence or give you ideas on what to write about. Now you can spend more time writing and editing and less reading research.
Okay, yeah, that's a little bit upsetting to me, to say the least, probably a lot upsetting to other people too. Again, if you were a faculty member focusing on building and developing your students' AI literacy, something that you could do is pause this situation and say to the student, or talking about this as an ad, bringing it up in front of your classes, to say, look, this form of retrieval augmented generation could help you with reading, but you actually have to know and have knowledge about the actual sources you're using to actually understand if the AI is being accurate. It can hallucinate and make up facts, and you are then the one who is responsible to go through that and put that into your paper, or click ++ to generate a response too. So that's why AI literacy is so important and crucial, is because we want to actually sort of put the brakes on the generative output, the speed of it, and be able to intervene with our students and talk with them. And again, we've gone through text generation, now reading and research. Well, that's not all that generative AI is being sold to our students on social media. It's also about note-taking and lecture. This is an app called TurboLearn AI. It uses augmented speech recognition to capture your lecture. It can automate note-taking from any number of instances. And from that, it can synthesize your information to create quizzes and flashcards. This could be an absolutely game-changing, tremendous help for students. So many students that have issues with following complex material in class. I would love to deploy this if I go to an in-person conference to actually have this. But it's got a lazy sales pitch behind it too. I've never listened to a single lecture.
Text, note-taking and lecture. TurboLearn.ai uses augmented speech recognition, ASR, to capture lecture, automates notes, creates quizzes and flashcards, The website is turbolearn.ai.
So part of the literacy we're trying to teach students is that we don't want to fully offload the skill that the AI is augmenting in this case. We want you to use this in conjunction with taking notes, in conjunction with listening actively to lecture. We want you to be able to learn how to balance using these tools effectively and ethically. And part of that is just breaking down the sort of pitches that they're seeing from these social media companies and talking with them face to face and being honest about that these tools exist and understanding from our own perspective as faculty members what these tools are capable of doing.
Title: Using AI to scan questions.
So even more interesting, there's been some new developments about using AI to scan questions. So Answers AI is a fairly new app. It uses multimodal AI, likely GPT Vision. I don't know if you guys are aware of GPT Vision, but it came out about 4 months ago with GPT-4's latest update. You can now take a picture of any text-based document, and the AI will then scan it and input it into the actual system as a prompt. This means that going to in-person exams as a method of trying to stop students using AI to commit academic dishonesty is probably not going to work. But there are other problems with that too, and we'll kind of unpack this here. Obviously, this could be tremendously helpful to students with disabilities and other learning challenges. Again, if I'm going into an in-person conference or something and someone hands me a piece of paper, I would love to be able to scan that immediately and be able to input that into my digital notes or use it for email or something else. Unfortunately, though, as we've found with the theme so far, we get this sort of lazy sales pitch.
This app has been a lifesaver helping me catch up with my schoolwork since I've been out with a concussion. All you need to do with this app is just take a picture of your question, send it to the app, and use AI to get the most efficient answer. Also, it's not just giving you the answers. This app also gives you an explanation, so it's genuinely helping me learn. It's gonna help me catch up on my work, and for that one class with that one teacher that doesn't know how to teach, you know who you are. I can finally understand what you're supposed to be teaching now. Woo! And now you can too. Just download Answer AI.
Oh boy, lots to unpack here. Deeply upsetting for me. If I was going to talk with Ashley, very happy that she's recovered from her concussion to make wonderful content, selling stuff on TikTok, by the way. If I was going to talk with Ashley, I would say, look, generative AI models like GPT or Google's Gemini model now too, or Microsoft's Copilot, they can be very helpful tools for different instances, but the one that they're very bad at is math problems and math questions. And your example here is you're actually using this to try to teach you about math. And all the comments underneath her actual TikTok video, there are dozens of students saying, I just used this and I failed my math exam. So that's, again, why it's important to actually try to intervene with students too and teach them about the limitations of this technology. I think the other thing to unpack from this video too is something that we've seen from a lot of students is there is this overwhelming feeling that they're not being served by their teachers. And I think I want to push back against that a great deal, because what we're trying to do when we look at this with our students, whether it's AI or normal subjects that we teach, we're trying to challenge our students to go past
TikTok watermark.
sort of their actual, I'm sorry, I'm having a moment myself. We're trying to challenge students to go past what is their sort of like plateau that they're reaching in their learning, to go beyond this and to actually start to actually think on their own. That's a challenging thing for a lot of students. That's going to be very much so an issue. And when you have an app like generative AI, in this case, that can basically do that for you or provide you an answer, even if it's not the correct answer, that's very tempting to use as a way to offload labor. So these are all moments that you can actually take and turn them into teachable moments with your students to actually help understand their AI literacy. And these tools could have good, profound effect on learning too, if they're used transparently and with ethical guardrails, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. The last example is not just students using AI or ethical issues around AI with students, it's also teachers trying to deal with this. So out of frustration, many educators are inserting Trojan horses into assignment prompts to try to catch students using AI. This is not a good idea. because it's a form of deceptive assessment and it's not ethical. And we'll watch the brief video where the actual influencer, in this case a teacher, explains how to do so.
Text prompt poisoning.
You've never heard of using a Trojan horse in your essay prompt? This might just be the trick to help you identify AI-generated essays in your classroom. On my page, I've mentioned a few different things that don't work in terms of identifying AI, but this hack is pretty clever and can show you exactly what to look for without the use of any software or special programs. The term Trojan horse comes from Greek mythology, and it's basically a metaphor for hiding a secret weapon to defeat your opponent. In this case, the opponent is plagiarism. Let me show you what I mean. So I split my essay prompt into 2 paragraphs because I'm going to enter my Trojan horse at the end of the first paragraph. You can write whatever you want here. Just make sure you change the font color to white and make the font size teeny tiny. So if this essay prompt is copied and pasted directly into ChatGPT, you can then just search for your Trojan horse when the essay is submitted.
Yes. So please don't do this. I know why people are doing it. It's out of frustration. It's out of fear that the students are going to be using this to cheat, but it is a deceptive assessment practice. You want to be transparent about what you are assessing students onto and not trying to trap them in that as well. So from my perspective, AI literacy is not just important to teach this to your students about ethical frameworks for using these tools. It's also important that we all ourselves adapt to an ethical framework of putting guidelines in place to actually try to establish this with tools as well. And we'll show you some ways we can do that here in a few minutes.
Title: Why training faculty in applied AI matters.
So let's just do a brief recap of what we've gone to so far, and then we'll talk about developing some frameworks. We are in a period of acceleration in generative AI, especially in education. We're moving well beyond ChatGPT. We just saw how Answers AI could scan images on a piece of paper and do so for math questions or writing. We saw that for Unreal AI too, for research and reading. We've seen that from TurboLearn, where it can actually capture lecture. So we are well beyond text generation to text generation technologies. Generative AI is definitely going to be moving into a lot of these different fields very quickly, and tons of developers are now using the API access from OpenAI and Google and Microsoft to build different versions of these tools. We want students to be using these tools with transparency in mind. We want to model that transparency for them. So to use that effectively, openly, and ethically. That means we want to go ahead and start thinking about ways to do statements where we do assignments. If I use generative AI and creating an assignment too for my students, I want to include a transparency statement too that talks about why I use generative AI and how I use generative AI. If I used a program like ChatGPT, I want to include a link to that to shows the actual prompt that was used. And I expect my students to do the same. That sort of modeling of transparency is going to be very important going forward because we are going to be having to teach our students how to use these tools. They're not going away. And the way to do so is with openness in mind and an ethical idea.
Text: faculty need more support.
More to our side of the equation too for faculty, we want to make sure that we focus on thinking about different ways about professional development. We want to start thinking about if the one-off professional development that many of us have in most higher education settings is going to be effective. From my perspective, it's probably not with generative AI. It doesn't mean that you can't go to a workshop or a Zoom like this one and get some wonderful information. I think that those are all very helpful. But if we want to actually establish a framework that is forward-thinking, we're going to have to go beyond these sort of skills that we're talking about today and build up a sustainable and resilient training structure for our faculty. I'm not saying what I have with the AI Institute is there yet. It's still got its own issues there as well, but I do think it is a step in the right direction, and hopefully others will start following, because we're going to have to start thinking strategically about what learning is going to look like in the next 5 or 10 years. Showing you those 2 videos that just were released yesterday on Thursday from OpenAI and Google is pretty shocking to me how quickly that we are going toward a place in time where virtually anything in our digital landscape can be either evaluated, researched with AI, or created with different types of generative AI tools. So we are really going to have to think about what teaching and learning is going to look like much further down the road than just this simple moment right now. So with that in mind,
Text highlights.
we're going to think about kind of framing how to develop AI literacy. And this is how I became the director of the Institute, the AI Institute for Teachers. We basically started a little bit earlier than other folks. And this article here too, which is also in the Google Doc, just came out from Computers and Composition. I was a co-author on the paper here with Robert Cummings and Stephen Monroe. We started working with different types of text generation technology well before ChatGPT was actually released. We actually started working with it in August of 2022, 4 months beforehand. And we came together as a team in May of that year. We had our freak out moment because we had a colleague of mine who was using an earlier version of the technology called GPT-3. And there was an app called Jasper AI, which was one of the very first open
Text generative AI.
API users of it. And I ran across that in May of that year and started bringing my laptop to every meeting I could to show faculty what was going on. And their reaction is much like our own reaction when we saw ChatGPT many months later. We were able to start a little bit earlier. We were able to come together and create a good team here at our university to start beginning IRB level research about what these tools do to students. So we've now used it for 3 solid semesters. This is the 4th one we're in right now. And data from over 80,000 words of student reflection so far suggests that students are very cautious adopters of generative AI, even when you give them solid framework, when you give them permission to use this within their actual assignment. So it's not like the world of the influencers that I just saw you. You guys can calm down. It's not everyone is going to be doing this. That's because the skills that we learn are not always easily offloaded completely to generative AI technologies. But
You on the right.
we want to start thinking about what these new tools can do to help them within their process of learning and think about what that means as we go forward.
More appear.
One of the ways we looked at was thinking about different interfaces. And I'm going to show you an interface in just a few minutes that's also linked in the Google Doc that you all will be able to explore if you can sign up to and think about if more humanistic interfaces are better than just chatbot interfaces exploring generative AI. With this in mind, we hope this can kind of demystify the tool and help build students' generative AI literacy.
Text.
So we didn't just jump into this and throw the tools into students' hands. We really did come together for quite a few meetings and think about developing a process or a praxis of integrating these tools effectively so that they supported our students' learning outcomes.
Slide text.
Bob Cummings, who was a co-author on our paper too, came up with the DEAR practice. And I'll briefly show you what this is. The D talks about clearly defining the stages of the project and enumerating each stage's purpose and achieving a student learning outcome. That project could be a full essay. It could be an entry where they go into a brainstorming assignment where they generate several different counter arguments and they start writing organically counter arguments on their own too, and they're comparing them to each other. What we're doing is starting to think about what we want from the tool and what we want from the learning experience before we just launch into the actual tool itself.
D, P, P, R.
So for each stage, we want to evaluate a specific generative AI technology to pair that with a learning activity. That really is a little bit of a challenge because even back in the day when we were trying to set this up before ChatGPT, there were dozens upon dozens of third-party apps that were trying to establish different types of interfaces. But those interface designs and what the actual generative technology can do is more important than anything else to the actual student's learning outcome than the type of model that they're using. And we'll kind of explore that here in a minute when I show you the tool. But after we set up that phase where we define what we want our students to explore, we want them to then evaluate it. We then want them to go ahead and explore using that specific generative technology for that stage and there's our student learning outcomes and for their actual project. And then we get to the most important phase is the reflection phase. We want to provide students lots of space to reflect on what this is doing to their learning, what it's doing to their writing process, what it's doing for other skills that we're having them look at too. So this is our define, evaluate, explore, and reflection praxis. And a little bit more of an explanation about why reflection is so important. So for the DEAR praxis to be essential in this on several levels for engaging emerging writing technologies, writers want to understand why the tool from their perspective its utility in reaching the goals of the writing project. If the writing task was brainstorming, did the tool introduce new ideas? Did it challenge the writer's thinking by providing counter arguments? Did the tool help the writer place ideas in the context of conversation with other ideas? There are going to be goals for that writing project that we obviously don't necessarily want AI to be impacted with too. So we want to think about that when we design this DEAR praxis, about what skills we want students to explore with AI, what skills we want them to keep organically, that's not defined by technology. And giving them that students the space to reflect on that is going to be crucially important to them. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and share with you a tool, one interface that we've been using. There's lots of different interfaces out there too. And really what we're going to do is kind of show you a test drive of how you can establish some guardrails and boundaries and introduce this interface with your students. And that interface is called lex.page, and it's a writing processor program. It looks a lot like Google Docs, but it has generative AI baked into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reshare my screen here one more time.
Lex Writing Assistant Introduction. Lex is an AI-powered word processor. Watch tutorial videos. Welcome to Lex. Overview of Lex.
All right.
Screen fades to black.
So this is also linked here. It's the Introduction to Lex, an AI-powered writing assistant. It's also released under CC by SA license, so you can reuse and remix this as you like. Lex has lots of cool features to help students and help with their writing too, to think about. And what I do is, this is the guideline that I hand to my students and that we developed as faculty. And it comes up with some different tutorials, which I will show you all these things in just a second. But most importantly, before we go into the tool itself, we have some guidelines, some policy to talk about with students. You have to come up and you have to say to your students too, by what you're designing this for, what you think is going to be acceptable, what you think you're going to allow with maybe some certain attribution, and what you're going to think is not going to be acceptable. And you're going to have to explain that to your students very clearly. And hopefully, if you pick a good interface like Lex, it's going to have some built-in tools that will help you enforce some of those things. So for me, what was acceptable for this tool that we're talking about for our students is that they can use it to augment their writing process with AI, but not replace it. They can use AI to help them brainstorm, check their grammar, spelling. They can also generate some feedback. That is, it's contentious in some ways too. We'll talk about that. They can explore different counter arguments to their ideas, and they can use AI to help them revise. If they want to use it as a writing assistant, they can do so. But they need to properly attribute what was generated by AI to, so they can keep track of it, to begin reflecting on it. The nice thing about Lex is that it actually has a built-in feature that will track what was generated by AI from the program itself. And I'll show you how that works here in just a minute. What absolutely is not acceptable, though, and you have to make this clear to students, is that you cannot use Lex or any other AI tool to generate portions of your writing without acknowledgement or attribution. You can't use AI to offload the recursive process of writing, and you cannot uncritically adopt an AI tool or technique without reflection. Again, the DEAR practice is all about reflecting about what this is doing to your process. Is it helping you? Is it hindering you? And we have some ways that they can identify, both through the MLA and APA guidelines. And there's also the built-in feature within Lex itself. But it's important to always have students look at reflection too and guide them along. And I always give them different types of reflective questions once they get done to submit assignment. I generally do this holistically after they get done with a major project. We do lots of snap reflections in our classes. So if I'm teaching in person, generally speaking, the last 5 minutes of class too, I tell my students to either pull open their laptops and open up a journal entry on Blackboard, or if they're writing by hand, I want them to write about the next 5 minutes or so of class of just what they learned. And those snap reflections are not AI proof, but it's very difficult for students in that time frame to go into generative AI and try to prompt and try to make it sound like themselves, and also trying to talk about what they just learned in class. So it's a lot easier for them just to do this. In mixing different types of reflection too, we not only have those snap reflections, we go into much more detailed, in-depth reflections that asks students to write for 400 or 500 words about a major essay project or major other type of project they're working on that they might be spending several weeks. And then they would submit these questions to if they use generative AI. If they use generative AI. So this is just the framework too, and it is there and available for you all to look at and think about. Let's look at Lex though, and show you what this looks like in practice. So I already have this pulled up here from Lex. This is my test piece on AI literacy that I keep around with me. And Lex is just like a normal Google document. You write in it normally as you would. It has lots of similar features, but there's some AI features built into it as well too, to be aware of. Some of the most simple ones are kind of hiding in plain sight. If I click on this button, it can generate different title ideas for me. And what it does is then scan what I've actually written. And it can give you some different title ideas. You can generate more.
Title suggestions pop up on the right.
The really nice feature though is you can go ahead and show what was generated by the AI natively within Lex. And once you do so, the AI generated text glows blue. So you can see I just did the title and the first sentence for this test piece. If I want to see that for my students too, I can ask them to share, and they have to share the edit link. I have to have a Lex account. They have to have a Lex account. Now, this is not designed to police their behavior with AI for the most part, because they can still go to OpenAI or they can go to Microsoft or Google and generate something and just copy and paste in there too. That won't show up on that. What this is designed to do is to begin having them model the practice of attributing what was generated by AI if they want to use it. It gives them the ability to easily track for themselves and for the teacher to go back and look at and say, okay, you're generating this. Let's talk about if this paragraph was actually helpful to you. And I can clearly see that this was the paragraph you generated versus the other paragraphs that you wrote on your own. Now, normally we can do that if we take the time and we read closely the student's writing, but it's really nice to have that available to us too, so we can see it and so the students can see it as well.
Word processing app.
Most students, though, even when they're allowed to write Lex, did not write much with Lex in terms of using generative AI. They chose to write organically. What they like doing with Lex, though, is getting instantaneous feedback from the AI. And there's two different ways you can do this with Lex.
Text AI.
You can go ahead and click on a paragraph or sentence, and you can click on the Ask Lex feature here.
Marc Watkins at Lex, opposing view.
And you can say, what are some ways
Text is highlighted.
an opposing view of this would be? My horrible grammar, I'm sorry. What are some opposing view of this would be? I'm terribly grammatically incorrect. Sorted up to opposing view too. I'm basically asking for counter arguments. I'm just trying to write like a student would write too, to just show you what it does. And you can see they are looking at generating some different types of opposing views, some different counter arguments. Now, I would never tell my students to accept these as face value. We want them to think critically about what these different counter arguments mean and what they're actually doing to the actual support of their actual argument, and to think about coming up with their own counter arguments or their own opposing views on their own too. It is just a helpful tool for them to have and to think about. So let me resolve and hide this really quickly. Now there's one thing, I'll turn this back on so you can see this. I did put a little Easter egg in here too. The very last sentence is human generated by me. The earth is flat and supported by a series of turtles. Well, not quite, but I'm doing this for a reason. And the reason is to sometimes we run across learners too that have some funny ideas about the world. Sometimes they have some incongruous ideas too. Sometimes they don't always match logically with their actual essay. And this is where the general feedback for Lex can actually help them quite a bit because it looks at the essay holistically. Let me click off this and go over here to the cog at the top right-hand corner. I'm sorry, the head with a question mark next to this is Ask Lex. So I can ask Lex for individual feedback on sentences. I can also get feedback from the entire system. Use the entire system of Lex's AI on the essay itself. So let me just say, get draft feedback for this, get feedback on the draft. Now, sometimes it's going to go ahead and identify it. Sometimes it's going to miss it though, because it's not always perfect. Again, generative AI is not the tool that is going to ever be perfect, but it should identify, there we go, the one outlier sentence. So number 5, the earth is flat and supported by a series of turtles. This statement appears to be a non sequitur and does not align with the rest of the article. Yes. Maybe it may be a metaphor, maybe not too, but it disrupts the flow of the piece. So you should probably take it out of there. So good, it can actually do feedback and actually identify some areas of that. So this is just one example of finding an interface to use with your students to sort of explore generative AI technology. It's not perfect. The underlying technology is not perfect either, too. We're not going to be in a phase where we get to have a language model that doesn't hallucinate until they do something different besides transformers. That is just part of it. But I think that it should give you guys something to think about. And I'm happy to now answer your questions.
Thank you, Mark. That has given me a lot of things to think about, and I'm sure our audience has their cogs moving as well. One question that came up earlier when you were talking about the ethical use of the unethical use of those poisoning prompts and everything. The question has to do with, if you look at that in action, and someone in our audience has seen this in action where the teacher used it to show the students the dangers of lazy AI and the use of lazy AI. It wasn't in an actual assignment. So the question is, would that still be considered unethical if you're using it to kind of show the students what lazy AI the dangers of lazy AI, as opposed to actually using it as a poison prompt?
No. If you're modeling this and you're telling them, look, this is what the danger of lazy AI is, I'm not going to do this with you, but other professors can. Your boss can do this to you too, going forward too. That's not unethical. From my perspective, it's unethical to adopt that and try to do that. But explaining that to them, that's never unethical. That's perfectly fine too, and that's something that I've done with my own students, and we've talked about before too. That now that this technology is readily available to everyone, that there are going to be people who are very much so adopters of it, and other people who do not want to deal with it, and that will try to tell faculty or students or your employer or employee that you cannot use this technology, and that is one of the means that they might try to do so.
Okay. Looking at using these generative AI apps, could you kind of take it out of the writing and rhetoric perspective and kind of put it into the scientific community and consider commenting on the use of AI to write reviews of scientific literature for a given research area?
So that's a great question. And a lot of different journals, I think Nature's come out with some different guidelines too, are trying to focus on developing guidelines to help researchers and scientists actually explore this. Meta in November of 2022 put out a specific tool for researchers called Galactica, which was their own language model that was designed to help researchers write literature reviews and research papers. What they found within 3 days, and they pulled it within 3 days, is that researchers were finding out that you could make the model say anything. Again, it would be very authoritative sounding, but completely wrong. I think one of the famous examples was that a researcher used it to produce a lit review about the benefits of eating ground glass on digestion, and put that onto Meta's Facebook, Meta's Twitter feed too, and saying that this does not appear to be safe. Regardless of what tools we're using, and there are some really great scientific tools out there too. AlphaFold, which is one of the great protein folding tools that have been out there too, using different types of machine learning and AI. But if you're going to use this from a scientific perspective, especially generative AI, you ultimately have to be the one that takes responsibility for what you put into the paper. If you are using your own words, someone else's words, or a generative AI's word, you are ultimately going to have to be the one that accepts responsibility for the truthfulness of that, the bias of it, or if there's any material in there too that could be plagiarized.
There is a question, and one of the things that we always do look at is, do no harm with your students. And a lot of that also resides in what kind of data is being gathered. So what does Lex do with student data or writing that is input to the app? The question comes in, that Our attendee knows that it's common concern around other tools like Chat
4 people on
GPT.
call.
Does Lex also come up with those kind of issues, and does it come up in conversations with your students?
It does, and I know the developer, and he is trying to be as open and ethical as he can be. It's incredibly challenging to do this.
4 people on call.
We have various data agreements with Microsoft on the University of Mississippi campus right now. One of those is for faculty to be able to use their version of GPT-4 called Copilot underneath their enterprise data protection plan. They have told us that anything we input into it, they do not have eyes on, and it is capable of handling sensitive data. My perspective and what I tell my students, what I tell any faculty member, is that you do not want to be putting anything in these systems that you do not feel comfortable with someone else knowing about the world too. It doesn't matter what they're telling you. It's just too opaque. We've had issues before in the past too with various vendors when we've adopted different types of plagiarism detection software that have been problematic before too, of retaining different types of student data. So we want to be careful, we want to be cautious. We want to be exploring this, and we absolutely don't want our students to dive headfirst into this. But we also want to be as honest as we can be. They are running across these tools in the wild. When I tell my students, I was like, okay, how many of you have a ChatGPT account? Half of them raise their hands. When I tell them what other AI accounts you have to, the other half raise their hands. So we really do have to sort of be thoughtful about this. I do think there are some universities that are moving ahead with their own versions of the tools, and they're going to have that behind specific servers that are housed on their campuses so that they can maintain FERPA and other types of educational data privacy. We're just moving so quickly, it just takes so much time to do this.
Another question regarding Lex specifically, would you not consider the use of Lex as a way of defeating the purpose of the student going out and actually conducting their own research through the school library or internet? It feels like it provides the student less opportunity to truly learn the topic.
I think that's a great point, and I think that's the contentious moment that we're in. Lex is one version of that where I have some controls and guidelines, right? I can tell my students too that for this assignment, I'm requiring you to write your first draft and get all of your research on your own. And from my perspective, 80% of the thinking process happens in that drafting phase. They're getting the research, they're doing there too. If you want to then use Lex to give yourself feedback, if you want to use Lex to help you with editing and grammar, by all means do that. But the reason why I'm showing you Lex is that as imperfect as it is, and it is imperfect, it just gives you some guardrails that you can actually explore with it through a humanistic interface of writing. With ChatGPT, it's just a chatbot. All it's going to do is generate an answer. And part of that time, that answer is going to be correct. Part of the time, it's going to be completely incorrect. This actually allows students agency and control about what generative features they want to use, and frankly, what generative features they don't want to use.
Man drinks from cup.
A question on a little bit different path.
Every learner everywhere.
When we look at, you were mentioning at the beginning, talking about the professional development opportunities there at University of Mississippi, and how you all felt you needed to embrace it early on. Our partner organization, WCET, has issued a framework for AI policy in institutions of higher ed, which includes a Bill of Rights for educators that includes the right to professional development on AI. So obviously you're an advocate for this, but do you agree that institutions are obligated to train faculty and students on the various aspects of AI?
Well, obligation is a little bit of a challenging term. I absolutely think everyone should be training their students to understand what the real world is going to look like, what faculty are too. My point of view on that, and I do not represent the University of Mississippi in this is just Marc Watkins telling you this point of view. I have to caveat this is that every institution that wants to adopt AI or has the impact of AI on their workflows, whether it's an educational institution too or something else out there in the world, owes their workers the ability to train them and to create a conversation with them too. All too often, that training has been, well, here's an asynchronous course we can do in an hour or something else. And what I just tried to show you with this presentation too is how that's not going to be effective. We need to start communities of practice that come together several times a year and talk about this and think about how it's going to be impactful for what we are doing with our jobs in education and how this is going to influence our students' skills now and the students' skills 5-10 years down the road.
So if you had a 30-second elevator pitch, call to action for institutions regarding AI, what would it be?
Revamp your professional development and talk to your faculty about what they need. Don't just go to policy conversations, go to the fact that this is going to be an ongoing thing that's going to happen in their world. And faculty are going to need sustained support and engagement too from the university to do this. So more professional development for all. Also more involving students in these conversations too, and getting their actual input too about what they would like to know. Every single one of my students has asked me, what should I do with this? What's the point? What's the ethical? What is my boss going to ask me to do with this? Am I going to have a job 5 years from now? They're asking these questions. They're thinking about this. They have every right to be in this conversation as well too.
Well, we thank you. Time has run down on this, and I know that we could have this conversation for several more hours. So Mark, really we appreciate all of this. This was really down in the area of tactical stuff that I know our audience was asking for in the past. I think this was really relevant to what's going on today and very helpful. And we hope to bring you back to tell us what's going to happen in 6 or 8 months, find out what's going on. Like you said, it turns around so quickly. It's a challenge. So thank you very much to Marc Watkins for his time and energy and for such an exhilarating experience today. For our audience, we do ask that you take a few minutes out to complete the survey for today's presentation using the link that we are posting in the chat for you. If you've got something else going on immediately after, don't worry about it. We'll send you the link to the survey in a follow-through email that you should get in the next day or two. We have one more webinar in this Strategies for Success series, so I'd like to encourage you to join us for that last webinar, where we will have a student panel discussing their thoughts and experience with AI. And actually, a couple of the students come from University of Mississippi, so you'll get to hear that perspective kind of in harmony with what Mark was presenting to us today. Finally, I'd like to tell you about our upcoming webinar series, Putting Equity into Practice, March 14th through April 4th. We will be offering a digital badge to those of you who attend 3 of the 4 sessions. And if you want registration information, please visit our workshop section of our website. We also encourage you to visit the Every Learner Everywhere website and our resources page, where all of our resources are free to download. Either read them online or download them at your leisure, and they are there for your benefit. So with that, I would like to thank Marc Watkins for being here today for such an exciting experience. And I'd also like to thank our attendees for participating in today's webinar. We look forward to seeing you next week for another exhilarating conversation. Have a wonderful day, and thank you very much.